You can build citations. And if you do it right, you can show up in the Google Map Pack. And what people don't know about local SEO is that it does have a pretty strong influence on AI visibility. And if you're a local business and you want to have good visibility in your local service area, don't care how big that service area is, I would say that's one that I think it's overlooked and underappreciated a little bit. A couple things with a website that looks good. And we have to take in consideration some technical things, because before it looks good, it has to load good, which means it has to be fast. Like right now with SEO, some of my clients could care less about it. They are so focused on AIO and GEO and getting into ChatGPT as their recommendation. So what gets you success is the least sexy thing. It's having a good foundation, having a good strategy, and then it's consistency over time.
Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to your show, E-Coffee with Experts. This is your host, Ranmay here. And today we have Chris Burns, who is the Senior Marketing Strategist at 2 Point Digital Agency with us. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks so much for having me on the show today.
Lovely. Chris, before we move any forward, why don't you talk us through your journey a bit, how it all started, how did you land up in the marketing and the digital marketing space, and also a bit about your agency, 2 Point Digital Agency. What do you guys do? What is your, what is that you specialize in? And then we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So my journey's kind of interesting. This question has made me think a little bit back to my high school days when I was a senior in high school. My guidance counselor said, "Hey, Chris, what do you want to study in college?" And I said, "I don't know. Like, I'm interested in business." And she said, "Well, what about marketing?" I think in my head, I said something like, "What the hell is marketing?" I didn't know. I was about 17 years old. To me, it was mostly about advertising because social media marketing wasn't a thing back then. And almost nobody had a website. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I get to work in the school store, be in DECA. So I ended up being in the marketing class and I loved it. It was the first time probably in my teenage years, I look back and said like, wow, school is fun. I like learning. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And I decided to study marketing after that. And I was glad I did because looking back, I had a lot of fun. It's been an interesting journey. I mean, I've had some opportunities to work in and out of a family business. I've had an opportunity to work as a product manager in the e-commerce, cellular accessory industry, worked for nonprofits. I've worked for family businesses. I've worked at a university. I've been an adjunct social media marketing professor and now currently work for a 2 Point agency. But I've had the opportunity over the years to work with some great clients. I've had a lot of my skills have been self-taught because, as I mentioned, by dating myself, there wasn't really a lot of digital marketing when I was in college back in 2003 and 2005. There was no website design. There was no social media marketing. I mean, yes, we talked about some digital things, but nobody then knew how to build a website. Like WordPress was kind of a thing, but that was never going to be taught in my era. So when I did enter the real world, I had to teach myself a lot of those things. And I've always enjoyed learning and trying to figure things out. And through a lot of failures and a lot of trying to be an entrepreneur myself, because I have started and sold many businesses, I've been able to use my businesses as a guinea pig to see what works and what doesn't. And that's where I'm able to have these conversations with businesses and say, like, look, I can prove to you this doesn't work because I've done it myself and it doesn't work. But fast forwarding to now, I've been in the marketing world for 20 years. I've been very fortunate to check a lot of things off my bucket list, from being a published author 2 times to being a social media marketing adjunct professor to owning my own agency, now working back in an agency. And I've helped hundreds and hundreds of businesses. I've been a keynote speaker. And I like to say that now I'm really a champion of small businesses. And I just don't think, as the title of my book says, that marketing has to be difficult, time consuming, or expensive to be effective. And I take that theory and I apply that to a lot of the clients at 2 Point. And to transition here, 2 Point is a 20-year marketing agency based out of San Diego. We have an international footprint. Most of our staff is full-time, located in the United States. We do have some staff located in India, in the UK, and kind of all over. But we've got a huge team. We're full service, so we do a little bit of everything. Our core competencies include things like SEO, digital ads like social ads, Google ads, website design. And I'd say big focus of what we're doing right now has a lot to do with AI visibility. So AIO, GEO, SEO. And it's really very interesting to see where this industry goes and warps into a year from now, because as you know, we've seen a lot of change over the last 6 months to 2.5 years with the rise of AI.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Quite a journey, I must say. Talk us more about your book. Your marketing so easy, it's fun again, built around a refreshing idea. Marketing can be practical, clear, and even enjoyable when the system is right. So talk us through more about the fundamentals that you would have shared in the book.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of that started for me working in a family business, limited
Hmm.
budget, small, local, but trying to compete on a larger level. I learned that it is possible to bootstrap your marketing and your overall efforts. And you can, if you think outside the box, you can compete with businesses that are much bigger than you at scale, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of practice. So you have to test obviously what works and what doesn't. You have to be willing to be lean and evolve quickly and not like get upset and frustrated when the things that you thought would work didn't work. Because oftentimes, and I'm curious if you've had this, but half the time when I think something is going to crush it, it sucks. And when I
Hmm.
think something is mediocre, it crushes. It's like, and you have to ask yourself, why is that? Well, I can tell you, I'm not the target market. I'm not the buyer. So why does my opinion matter? It doesn't always matter. And so sometimes marketing is subjective. But to answer your question, that theory really morphed and evolved. I'll make this a quick story. But when I worked for my first agency, they asked me to do some community building, community development, which meant go out and go to chamber events and network with people in the community. So I did. And one of the chambers said, "Hey, you're really knowledgeable about this social media stuff. Do you want to do a workshop?" And at the time, I had never done any public speaking. So I did. And she said, "Well, the thing you have to do is you have to make it so easy, there's no excuses." And that thing that she said to me resonated so much, it became part of my marketing DNA moving forward.
Hmm.
So she said, like, if you're going to give them, can you give them a template? I said, yeah, I've got this awesome, like 10-page document. She's like, that'll never work. That's just not going to work for this audience. I was like, but more is better. And she's like, no, can you get it to one page? And I was like, sure, but I don't see there's going to be any value there. So anyways, I put it together. I did the workshop and I was blown away. Not only was it my first public speaking opportunity, but I had dozens of people come up after me and be like, "Oh my God, that was amazing." And I walked away scratching my head thinking, I thought this was going to be a waste of time. This is so elementary, so stupid, so simple. And that was part of it. It was so stupid simple that people loved it because I broke it down in a way where they were like, "Oh, at the time, this is 14 years ago, Facebook is so complex and I don't know how to do Facebook. I don't know how to do Instagram." Well, people loved it. So it was like, well, this is so easy. There's no excuses.
Yes.
And then it started to evolve where it's like marketing's so easy, it's fun again because marketing should be fun. This is where you get to package your business and talk about it in a way that makes it unique, that makes it special. Because why else would you have a business if it's not special and unique? Why else would you have a business if you didn't truly believe in it? And so, that could bring us down a whole nother rabbit hole we'll stay away from. But if you believe your business is special and better than the rest, well, then how do we package it? How do we sell it in a way that makes us feel proud? And if we're able to do that, it should be effective. And if it's effective, it's fun. And it's fun because you're generating results and you're profitable. So that's kind of the whole thing is it it gets it to a point to where when you read the book or when you understand my proposition, it is let's just focus on the things that work and stop doing the things that don't work. So I see these people and they're like, "Oh, well, we're sending emails and the unsubscribe rate goes down and down and down and down and down." And it's like, okay, well, maybe we should do something different. Maybe we shouldn't email, or maybe we should evolve the plan. Or I see people who are posting 5 times a week on social media. They have 150 followers and no engagement. Well, that's clearly not working. So
Yeah.
I understand it's not a big time investment, but let's take that half hour a week and let's invest it in something different that does work. So this is not rocket science. This is not going to blow your mind. And for some people, it does, but it's just a matter of we have to break down what works, understand it, and then be willing to walk away from something that we think should be working and try something new. There's a lot more to it. I'm happy to elaborate on it, but it's just doing the things that work. And
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I see a lot of businesses that they keep doing the same thing over and over, and they're wondering why. They feel like, oh, this agency took advantage of me, or this didn't, this company sold me the stars and the moon and the sky. It's like, well, did you really understand what your business needed, where you needed the most amount of help?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with that one. Simple and boring can be so efficient at times, right? So we tend to think about complex ideas and, kind of make it more complicated and feel that that will bring results. But at times, simple and boring is so efficient. And just to add to what you said, a lot of product marketing guys or, product marketers, or let's say product owners, right? They look at the product from their own lens versus the consumer lens, right? So wherein they feel that, okay, my product does this, this, and this, while your consumer might be buying or using your product or service with a different idea altogether, right? So it's so important to understand why your existing customer base is your existing customer base, in the sense that why are they sticking around with you? For what reason did they buy your product, service, started using, subscribe to your product, whatever, right? Why they're paying you, for what reason they came onto your website and bought your product or service. We try and go after the blue ocean out there, ignoring our existing customer base, right? So that is a pretty valid point there. Now, you have a pretty solid background, like we were speaking about it earlier, Chris, and both sales and marketing, which I personally feel is a deadly combination. And you'd have seen the difference between campaigns that create activity, campaigns that actually create business momentum, right? So, what does momentum look like before it shows up or before the revenue realization happens?
What does momentum look like in marketing?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say a couple things. Those companies that build momentum often have a really solid foundation. And to kind of back that up, a big part of my theory is helping clients build a foundation. Many times the foundation is your website, but if you dig a little bit deeper and we compare marketing to building a home. So if you were fortunate enough that you could go out and buy some property and you want to build a house on that property, I often ask people, like, what's the first thing you do? They're like, oh, we start digging the basement. It's like, okay, or you pour the concrete foundation. No, no, wrong answer. But wrong answer on both fronts is the first thing you'd do is you'd hire an architect and you'd build a blueprint. And that's required. That's a requirement if you're going to do this. No one just shows up and says, well, I want a 1 story home with this many bedrooms and this many bathrooms. The reason being is that the builder needs instructions. They need a plan. And they need a
Yes.
very detailed plan with, we're down to the centimeters and the inches in some case. How many pieces of lumber do I need? And so when it comes to marketing, when I do a lot of my workshops, I ask this question over and over again. How many of you have a strategy? Raise your hand. I would be shocked if 50% of the room raises their hand. Usually it's about 10% of the room raises their hand. Sometimes it's much less. And then I'll say, okay, keep your hand up if you have it in document format. Now we're looking at 50 people, maybe 2 or 3 people, maybe 5 people have their hand up. Okay, keep your hand up if you've used that strategy and looked at it in the last 6 months. Oftentimes, nobody has their hand up. Now, if I'm at a conference where we've got some bigger, established, like multi-million-dollar businesses, I might have a couple hands up. But typically, what is your expectation for success if you don't have a blueprint? If I bought land, hundreds of thousands of dollars for that land, and I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a home, my expectation for that home would be pretty low. I would not expect it to last long or be very valuable. So the same is true in marketing. People say, well, I don't like marketing. Marketing sucks. It's typically because they have no blueprint for which to build that house. So if you have a blueprint that includes, again, the things that work, you can then start to build some momentum because you'll see, oh, well, I'm getting more traffic to my website because people understand what we do. They understand the problem we solve. They understand why and how we are different. Okay, great. Well, the copy's effective. The imagery is good. The website is fast. You've got good technical SEO. All of a sudden, that cascades into social media. And you're like, oh, well, we understand who we are and we're conveying that to our customers. So all of a sudden, our social media is a little bit more effective. Now, all of a sudden, that starts to cascade into our Google ads and our meta ads. And people say, like, whoa, people see us and they say, wow, our chiropractic service does X, Y, and Z. Here's how it's different. Or our salon or our restaurant or insert any other business. People understand what we do and, more importantly, the problem we solve. And if you are good at communicating what you do and why you're different, if you're able to get it out there in different platforms and you're getting it in front of new eyeballs, you will feel that momentum. And so I think a lot of it is you have to really be confident in that foundation, because if you are really confident in your strategy, you're going to be willing to take some risks. You might be say, hey, let's go get into TikTok shop if that's appropriate for us. Let's go get into email cold outreach, or let's start to advance and get a more robust email marketing strategy. And all of a sudden, you start branching out and you start investing a little bit more. That's what momentum feels like, because you're confident in that investment. But without a solid foundation, well, why would you build and expand on your home? Why would you renovate your home if it's just going to fall apart in 6 to 9 months anyways? So I always ask people, like, do you want to add on to your home? Would you be willing to add on 3 or 4 more bedrooms? It's like, well, no, like, we wouldn't do that to a home that's not valuable. So to me, it all starts with the blueprint. And even before the blueprint in marketing, you still have to have a good understanding of what's working and what's not.
Hey, we hope you're enjoying the coffee and the conversation so far. This show is powered by Digital Web Solutions. And if you've ever wondered how the biggest brands actually build authority, this is it. DWS has a massive network of over 250,000 publishers, real sites that help you rank on Google, and more importantly, stay visible in AI search. It's the heavy lifting most teams just can't do on their own. As a thank you for listening, they're offering an exclusive free strategy call just for our eCoffee listeners. It's a great way to map out your authority plan for 2026. Just click the link below to book yours and see how they can help scale your brand. All right, now let's get back to the show.
Absolutely. And that is why, 2 Point puts strong emphasis on custom websites as long-term business assets, because that is where it all starts from, right? So from a strategist perspective, what separates a website that, let's say, looks good from a website that actually, kind of supports growth?
Yeah, great question. So to me, a couple things with a website that looks good, and we have to take in consideration some technical things, because before it looks good, it has to load good, which means it has to be fast. And so you can go to Google Page Speed and you can check your website speed for free, but don't just check the homepage, check the internal pages, because there are
Absolutely.
agencies out there, they'll say, look, your website's nice and fast, but they only give you the speed of the homepage. Whereas I could go and I could scan a catalog page or a category page or anything else, only to find out that they only put the effort into optimizing the speed of your homepage. So if your website speed is not strong, it is possible that Google will penalize you, air quotes penalize you, meaning they're just not going to prioritize a website that's going to give people a poor user experience. So that's number one. So if you have a good technically sound site, you're more likely to get shown to people. So I do feel like the technical side sometimes comes before the beautification side. Now, on a good website, to me, it is visuals. A lot of our clients rely on stock photos, which I'm just not a big fan of. I do understand that in some cases, that's the only option we have, so that's what we have to use. But I personally do not resonate with AI generated images. I know they're AI. I know they're fake. It feels fake. And if it feels fake and sterile, that to me greatly lowers my chances of converting. Especially when I know you're a local business and you serve local people, there's no excuse not to have that. If I'm going to work with someone, whether it be a salon or a spa or a chiropractor, or even a B2B business, it's nice to be able to put a face with a name, someone that I'm going to work with. It just feels real. It feels authentic. So I could go down that rabbit hole for a long time, but I won't. I also think that I like to really help people with copy, because again, your headlines on pages. So rather than saying things like about us and talking in very generic terms, you have to write simultaneously both for people and search engines, which means you you have to understand the user, put yourself in the user's shoes and write headlines that are going to be compelling to them, that make sense. But also in the copy, you have to tell people what you do instead of, and I know that this is popular with some of my clients, is giving people a novel. Nobody wants to read a novel, 6 paragraphs about the history of your company. As much as that may be important to you, it's just not important to the client. Now, giving some history, giving some background, having some bullet points are great, but readability is really, really important for me personally. Yes, I want to know that you're established. I want to know some of your credentials, but there's a point of diminishing returns with that. And there's other areas to put that are less important. So think about the most important real estate on your website. It's certainly things like above the fold. Before you do any scrolling, that is the most important billboard on your site on some of these pages where we have to be sure, and I'm going to say it again, people understand who you are, what you do, and why you're different or the problem you solve. And if you're just not doing that, you should expect your conversion rates to be pretty minimal. So to me, it's bright, vivid, quality imagery, not stock photos. It's focusing on your headlines and your copy. And then the last and final thing I'll say here without going too long is what is the journey you put people on? So we don't often think about that because we're the owner or the manager of the business, but what is the next step for me to take when I'm on your website? What do you want me to do next? Do you want me to book a call? Do you want me to buy something? Do you want me to fill out a form? What is it? Do you want me to go to this next page? Because if we're often clicking and clicking and there's no real next step, people will not convert. And so you have to click on the links and the CTAs to see if they work, to see if they actually get me to where I want to go in a quick and easy fashion. Because I have seen many businesses where there is no easy conversion. And because there's no easy way for me to convert, people just leave. They just bounce.
Absolutely. And, continuing from that, AI engines do not just look at, the company, what a company says about itself, right? They increasingly interpret wider footprint reviews, third party mentions, like we're talking about link building, structured information, how the content is being presented, public credibility, external trust signals. So when you advise a business, how do you do that on kind of building a brand trust now, and how do you think about reputation as something that has to be visible across the web and not just let's say published on the website?
Yeah, so that's a tough one because if I'm just starting with a business, especially if we're doing something related to ads or websites, that's a really good opportunity for me to jump in and say, "Hey, I go through and I scan the website. I do an eyeball test and I say, this is what I see and this is what I feel. This is my experience as a customer." And I'm able to tell them that, "Hey, I don't really understand the problem you solve. What do you want me to do?" And then they can start to see it from the consumer lens as well. Now, if you're building a website or building a new website, it is very easy to go through that process and help a client revitalize their brand image and their brand name. If we're not doing any of those things, it will take time for me to convince a client that we need to reshape. And we don't have to go through a rebrand. We don't need a new logo, but oftentimes we might need some new headlines, some new taglines. We might need to look at, and this is often what I say, is we need to do an audit, a competitive audit. And this is to me where everything starts is when I can understand your competitors and your direct competitors specifically, I can compare you. And I don't like comparing, but in the sake of things working and not working, we need to understand the landscape because if I have 3 competitors and we're competitive, but we're just not where we want to be, and I can see decent ad performance, like, oh, we're getting a lot of impressions, we're getting a lot of clicks, we are just not getting conversions. Oftentimes, people just don't align with the brand. And could the website be subpar? Yes, absolutely. But the website is often subpar because the business doesn't know who they are. They're not doing a very good job of talking about who they serve, where they serve, or the problem they solve. And so a lot of times these marketing issues are fundamental. They just go back to the blueprint, which is who are we? Who do we want to be? Who do we want to serve? And how do we serve them? And so I often ask the question is like, do we need a refresh on some things? The client doesn't always know, but it's incumbent upon me as the strategist to say,
Yes.
Have things evolved? Have things changed? The answer is almost always going to be yes. Yeah, we've evolved. Yes, we changed our pricing. We've done this. Sometimes we need to look at a copy refresh. It could just be with the ads or it could just be on the social media. But many times we need to revise the message that we're telling people online. And that could just simply be let's go through the site, let's update a few things. Because as you know, consumer sentiment changes. Like right now with SEO, some of my clients could care less about it. They are so focused on AIO and GEO and getting into ChatGPT as the recommendation. I have to shift the way that I talk about things because they don't want to hear about it. And so that's, again, that falls on me to be able to have those conversations.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I can totally, relate to that because, I have, we have had funny, conversations and inquiries coming in wherein the clients really want to get on different LLMs and rank in there. But, funnily, the consumers or their audience are not looking up for them at anywhere apart from Google. So they're just joining the bandwagon, the noise that's there. So yeah, so that is when, us marketers kind of have to educate the client as well as to what is good for them. When is the right time to kind of go on a new platform and kind of be there. So absolutely. And, kind of going back a bit in terms of SEO, Chris, you have been in the industry for a couple of decades now, would have seen enough summers and winters, enough Google updates coming in, right? And the industry changing from where it started to now where it is with all the AEO, GEO, whatever we want to term it as, right? So what core marketing principle do you feel, is still very relevant from, where we all started, despite everything what has changed around us?
Hmm. What's still relevant? Yeah, I could give you a lot of different answers, but I'll maybe give you one that a lot of people aren't expecting,
Okay.
which is local SEO. So if you're a small local business and you're listening to this, the power of Google Business Profile is probably a little stronger. I'll emphasize a little stronger than what you're used to. And I think the things that's changed there is it's what I would call, and again, I want to emphasize pseudo social media platform. It's a pseudo social media platform because you can post, you can add photos,
Yeah.
you can add and edit services, you can respond to reviews, you can ask for reviews. So much you can do with it. You can build citations. And if you do it right, you can show up in the Google Map Pack. And what people don't know about local SEO is that it does have a pretty strong influence on AI visibility. Because when a LLM like ChatGPT says, someone asks, hey, what are the best restaurants in Miami? Where is it pulling from? It's pulling from platforms that have reviews, recent and consistent reviews. So, yes, it loves TripAdvisor, it loves Yelp, it likes Facebook, but it loves Google Business Profile. And that is one of those things that over a long period of time in the macro, it can be effective. It's cheap, it's easy, and it's one where, again, if you're a local business and you want to have good visibility in your local service area, don't care how big that service area is, I would say that's one that I think it's overlooked and underappreciated a little bit.
Absolutely. It still is very potent, right? Like you said. Perfect, yeah, Chris. This has been a great conversation. Before we let you go, a piece of advice for our young listeners. You have been there, have built businesses, exited, have supported businesses, kind of going ground up and then, kind of ensuring they exit from that, from that entity as well. So you've seen enough to kind of understand the business nuances along with marketing, over the last 10 odd years or 20 odd years. So, what is that piece of advice you want to share with our audience, especially for young listeners who are trying to start or carve out their own entrepreneurship journey?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I could give you a lot of different answers, but one and a half things here is there's no silver bullet. So, have I seen people blow up in what seems like overnight? Yes, very, very rare, but it's never really overnight. They blow up overnight after 10 years of posting videos on YouTube, after 10 years of going at it on social media. And that's to me the same with SEO and anything else is it's going to take you just a month plus to get all your pages indexed on Google, let alone to be ranking number one. So I would say, obviously, the foundation is the strategy. So what gets you success is the least sexy thing. It's having a good foundation, having a good strategy, and then it's consistency over time. So what I found with the people that are most successful is they're not what I would call a toe dipper. So over my experience in marketing, I've seen a lot of people that are like, "Oh, Chris, you really like TikTok. Should we do TikTok?" Yeah, okay. So I put TikTok in their strategy, and I come back 2 months later. I was like, "Say, hey, how's TikTok going?" It's not. I'm like, "Oh, why?" Well, we posted like 3 or 4 videos and it just didn't work. I was like, 3 or 4? Over what period of time? 2 weeks. We were really active. We just didn't see anything, so we stopped doing it. It's like, 2 weeks? How do you know if anything works after 2 weeks? It's
Yeah,
like you don't. And so you have to be patient and you have to be consistent over the macro. And I mean, give something 3 months, give it 6 months. And that's when you'll know if you're building momentum. And if you're building momentum, you keep doing it. And if you're not, you just pivot and you evolve. So there's no silver bullets. You have to be consistent. And you have to be consistent in the macro. And again, if you're building a business, a year is not enough. It's just not going to be enough. You have to be in this for the long haul, and you can do it. You can build it. You can bootstrap it. You can do all these things, but you're going to check it, and 6 months later, you're going to get bored with this. It's just you got to be happy with those slow incremental wins that you're getting month over month and year over year, and everything's possible. It's just it takes time, patience, and a want to continue to learn.
absolutely. Just be at it. So perfect, Chris. This has been a great conversation. Once again, thank you so much for taking out time to do this with us. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.